Hello, this is Michael Edward Lowe, and I wanted to first start off and say thank all the professors who helped me through the program. It definitely has been a wonderful, enlightening, I would say, journey, and to probably, I would say, definitely the depths of design, rather than just producing. And so I think it's definitely a different approach and one that I gladly accept. So when I think of design management, I think of not only design as an aesthetic, because there's that aspect of it, but I think of the application of design to ultimately build a product or service with hopefully a innovative approach, and as well as a possible innovative outcome. I look at it as design being something that is engaging, not just something that is just passively looked at, but actually something that people can engage with. So I look at design as a strategy. I look at design as an outcome. I look at design now as an experience. And ultimately, I look at design as something to hopefully differentiate. I hate that word all. Differentiate one's business or product from another. And so I think it's twofold. I think it's the business of design, but then I also think it's business itself. Um, when I say the business of design, I'm more so talking about the business of what design can do. I think when we look historically, at where designers used to sit at the head of the table, before the big HR boom movement and all these things, we had an intricate place. And so I think design management is helping to put people who have all these skills and talents and don't fit in the black and white side of design into a place where design is definitely at the forefront of a corporation. Um, how have I used design to, um, well, I would say more so design management to change where I'm at? So I actually run my own agency. And so when I first came into the design management program, I had a background in graphic design, and I was kind of divvying, kind of getting into the advertising world. And so I got accepted into SCAD for advertising, but I kept having clients and different contracts that me and my team were getting. They were wanting more than just for me to make something look pretty, and they were definitely wanting more than me to just sit there and conceptualize about an ad. And so when I was working at the Weather Channel, I had to really ask myself, what was it that I could do that could help me, in a sense, grow up, to be able to sit at the decision making table rather than just the production room section. And while I love doing production work, it wasn't my passion once I found out that there were problems that needed to be solved that a lot of my left brain counterparts just weren't having the ability to solve. And so when I'd be in the meeting yelling squirrel, they'd all look at me, but then after we started to unpack what was being said, then that's when the person who at the time at the Weather Channel was like, I really think that you should really use design as something else. And so I came back to SCAD, and from there, I, just asked the admissions, is there another program in addition to this advertising program or brand storytelling and creative direction that I can use to honestly, you know, uh, pretty much add to my portfolio. And so they brought up this whole idea of this design management. And they said, Michael, you're pretty business. We can tell you kind of are a little different from a lot of the other students. And I was like, well, thank you. But what's this design management? And so they started telling me, hey, they're really digging the whole innovation. Think of Silicon Valley, that way of thinking. And for me, when I think of Silicon Valley, I think of innovation and, tag word, but then all the other different processes that come out. And so that's when I ended up becoming a design management major. And so there are a couple of takeaways, even though I have that base definition, that I would have to say that have the need to go with design management. So I wrote them down on my little sticky notes. So, we have sticky notes. But one thing that I said was design is a commitment. Design management has to be a commitment. One thing that I am definitely learning about design management is that it's changing the way that people think. And for me as a business owner, I had to really ask myself, if I overhaul our company, how many people would be committed to adding the design management approach, that methodology of doing something. And so I think anybody who wants to dig into our field has to be committed, because not everybody understands what it is. It's very ambiguous. It's almost like the design squiggle when you first mention it. It's like, oh my God, it's all over the place. But then once you actually start to see it in action, you start to see a solid expression of what the power of design can do. Second, I think inputs background information. And what I mean by that is garbage in, garbage out. I think that all the parties, when it comes to design management, must come to the table with an actual understanding that there will be compromises that have to be done, that have to be, upheld to, and that it's a compromise to come up with a desired solution. So I look at design management as very collaborative. While we have a design manager, I feel like the design manager's role is to make it as collaborative and as open as possible, so that people can really feel comfortable to take on this new mindset to get these new outcomes. And so that's definitely something that I've picked up from the program. Thirdly, I think money is needed to overhaul, and I'm just using my personal experience and what I've done, because I am committed, because I have started to introduce a lot of these philosophies to the company. And we actually have made some of these changes to become a service design firm. And so while we're not a design management firm, we are a service design firm, and we felt that we could use design management theories and principles and things of that nature. So that leads to the second one. You need money. You got to have resources. I don't care how many design models you have, a budget is a blessing. And for me, I feel that a budget is needed for people who are wanting to earnestly take on this idea of design management and or any of the more deeper sides of design as far as a thought perspective. So that was something. I think expertise is important as well. Coming up with great ideas with sticky notes is wonderful, but having those great ideas with the right expertise in the room is important. So as a design manager, or as a service designer or a UX designer, or whatever the case may be, or just design in general, I think it's really cool to watch how we pick the expertise that comes in the room. So when I was in one of the classes, our professor was from the UK at that time. And when he picked our groups, all of us were so different, so like headstrong. And I think it was really cool because of the way he picked our groups. He went off of our expertise and what we brought to the table. And it was interesting. We had some duke out fights, but it was definitely an interesting expression of what could happen. And so we actually created an app, and from that, something dealing with religion. And we're actually all pretty much working towards making that app a reality. So it's interesting what happened when the expertise was present and how much forward thinking came about from it. And then lastly, I think process. I don't think you should be in design management unless you are process driven. While I've steered my team into understanding service design and kind of moving that as our primary focus within the corporation, the design management process, or the design process in general, is something that has to be a part of the culture. It's not something that you can just wing it or try to do it. And I think just personal thoughts, I'm hoping that design thinking just doesn't become the buzzword and the brainstorming session, and it becomes just as dead as a lot of those brainstorming sessions are. But reality is that how might we create a process or system that people can follow, that makes it endearing and something that is cutting edge. And so again, those are just some of my thoughts. Those are just some of my, uh, you know, ideals that I've grown to embrace since I've been in the design management department. And again, thanks to everybody. I've truly enjoyed my my education at the Savannah College of Art and Design.